Hey guys, this is Magamu, and by now you probably have come across Soulframe either by being a Warframe player and coming across it, or you are a fan of Souls games and somehow came across it during some of the most recent events from last year. So in this video, I'm going to explain to you exactly what Soulframe is, and this is going to be purely based on the pre-alpha prelude gameplay that's going around. The devs have been playing it, as well as a few hundred players, very exclusive, have been invited to this. And everything I talk about in this video is going to be based on that gameplay. Now, I'm sorry about the blurry video. This is all the footage I have. I have not been invited to the early prelude gameplay. So I don't have access to this. It's purely based on some of the streams and information I've absorbed. All right. So let's just jump through a few things. First of all, some of the, more, I guess, nerdy dev things of it. This is basically based on the Warframe engine. There's no reason for DE to rewrite that. It's basically going to be Warframe and all its technology. It's going to be written in C++, Lua. Some of the backend is based on some of the same backend database stuff that Warframe is based on. And for now, if you're wondering if this is going to be on PC or console, this will start out on PC for a very long time in the same way that Warframe started out on PC. And then eventually it'll move on to console, and then eventually it'll move on to crossplay. And again, the reason it's able to do all that is because Warframe is crossplay nowadays. It's on console and it started out on PC. It's following the exact same line of logic or development that Warframe followed. Now, as far as gameplay, how's this game going to play out? Especially because it has Souls in the name. So you're going to be expecting a certain thing as a Souls player, and you're going to be expecting a certain thing as a Warframe player, right? So this is a melee only game, no guns, obviously, if you're used to a game like Warframe. And the difficulty will be there. So it seems like this is going to be a little bit more difficult than what Warframe will be, but the difficulty may not be as much skill-based as maybe a Souls fan would expect. It seems like a lot of the difficulty, again, this is based on the pre-alpha gameplay, will probably be reflective of your character level, probably a little bit more than skill expression. So character levels a little bit more. Now, this will also have a couple cool features as far as how you progress through the game. It seems like a lot of progression is tied to the ancestors of your main character. So for instance, you go out in the world and you collect these ancestors, and then those ancestors get sent back to your Nightfold. Now, this is basically your player housing area where you collect ancestors. These ancestors are basically NPCs, like you would build weapons or you will upgrade things. So a lot of the progression of the game is probably going to be locked into these ancestors of your main character. Now let's talk about the world. The world has a few things going for it. It has a day-night cycle where night isn't purely night, is basically like more green than dark. And if you've played Warframe, you can expect where they do these different things with night cycles. In Warframe, for instance, there are two giant worm mecha bosses that fight right as dusk or dawn happens. So they have always done interesting things with the day-night cycles. There are going to be points of interest that are going to be mostly tied in with the lore, not just fighting enemies, but your ancestors themselves will be tied in to the different POIs in the world. There is going to be an overworld and also an underworld of dungeons, in the same way that you think of some of the open world maps in Warframe, like Plains of Eidolon, have an upper world that has been used more and not so much the lower world. So the open world above will not be random. This is going to be a set open world where you will have very static points of interest that you go to and you fight monsters and you do stories and quests, that type of thing. There will be some randomness in the position of items, like maybe trees or rocks, that type of stuff, maybe more random. But as far as the general overlay of the world, where things are laid out, it will be static and things won't be moving around. Now, where things change up is once you get into the dungeons of Soulframe, that's where the RNG happens. If you play Warframe, the actual tile sets of the map will be rearranged. So every time you come into the dungeons, the undercroft of the that's under the open world, then you'll get all of your random RNG, replayability, that type of thing. Now, I mentioned the Nightfold earlier. This is where it gets really cool. At any time, you can transfer back and forth from the main playable parts of the world to the Nightfold. Again, Nightfold is going to be your player housing And the coolest thing about this is the ease of access. Like, I'm wondering how this is going to work when you're in combat. Like, there's got to be some lockout for combat, traversing the world, that type of thing. But just overall, you just hit a button and you go to your player housing. Now, within that, you will have access to the ancestors. Again, these are NPCs that you unlock throughout the story, campaign, or general progression of the game. These guys will build weapons. They'll have access to your crafting, your ability unlocks, upgrades. So pretty much it seems like all of your progression is tied to the NPCs within your player housing, aka the Nightfold. Now let's talk about combat, because combat is a bit of a mixed bag, because it is basically what you would expect from a Souls-like game. For instance, you have normal attacks, it's all melee, and you have heavy attacks that are a little bit slower but deal more damage, obviously. Where things kind of mix up is there seems to be a kick that can knock enemies down or stun them that's probably independent of your normal melee sword attack. Just like you would expect from a Souls game, there are dodges and evades where you just outright avoid damage and block. Now, what they're doing with blocks is it's a timed parry. So you would normally block an attack. If you don't time it perfectly, it just blocks the damage. But if you do it at the exact moment, you will parry the attack back at the enemy. This isn't just exclusive to Souls game. This is in a lot of melee type games. So you guys should be used to that. There's a sword throw where it does have some lead time. So you need to aim it in front of the enemy in a direction that they're walking. So it takes a little bit of skill to land a thrown sword attack. You can also hit the enemy on the recall. So a little bit of Thor's hammer coming back at you to deal some damage. And once that sword has been thrown out, you have access to essentially combos that are unarmed fist combat combos. They seem to deal a little bit less damage, but you're not left completely useless because your melee weapon is thrown out and smashed against some enemy's helmet and bounced off into the water. I hope that actually happens in this game. Now, there are also finishers, basically prompted finishers, where if you hit an enemy a certain type of way, or I'm not really sure, maybe some type of guard block or something, guard break seems to lead to some type of finisher. But you also have stealth finishers, where if you crouch walk throughout the world, it lowers enemy perception like you would expect in any stealth game. And stealth in general, it seems to be something that you use to avoid high-level enemies, to progress through the world. And again, to unlock the finisher, you walk up to an enemy crouch walking and you do a finisher. That's the other way to get a prompted finisher on enemies. Now, prompted finishers don't insta-kill anything. It seems to be an amplified damage. So for instance, if you're under-leveled for an area and you get a prompted finisher or a stealth finisher on an enemy, that's not guaranteed to kill them if they're higher level. That's why in the beginning I said that the skill expression in this game isn't really like Souls games. It is really tied to the progression or the level of your character, more so than how good you are at the game, right? That has been my perception based on the gameplay. Now, there are also abilities. So for instance, you've got a bird stun. The character snaps his fingers and a bird goes out and pesters the enemy, and that functions as a stun. We haven't really seen many more abilities outside of just text inside of some of the upgrade NPCs. So no way to really know what's probably going to be final as far as abilities in the game. But if I had to guess, the bird stun thing is probably going to be around for a while if I had to guess. Now, this game has souls in the title. So how is death going to work? Well, instead of the campfires that you would expect in something like Dark Souls, you essentially have these checkpoint stones that while you're out in the world, you walk up to them. Right now, they're just proximity. You don't click them or anything. You just walk past them. They light up, and that becomes a checkpoint for your character. Once you die, you have a limited amount of time to get back to your character to maybe pick up any progression you have or any items. The gameplay is not really clear what your motivation is to get back that quickly. But that is the way that checkpoints work. They're basically like bonfires that you will see in Souls-like games. Now, loot. Not a lot as far as loot. Now, the way you get loot is, of course, you can upgrade things in your player housing. You can break crates open in some of the outer world map areas. Chests have treasure in them if you find a chest within a world. There's crafting, of course, again, in the Nightfold. And you can also collect magic energy. Now, it's not entirely solidified what collecting magic energy will do. And even Steve Sinclair said he's looking for ideas of what happens if you collect energy and your energy is full, like how all that works. So again, this is super early, and it's probably why they're not really letting a lot of people play this, because most of the systems haven't really been nailed down. They're just kind of experimenting. And the other thing you can do as far as loot is apparently you can walk up to plants and just eat them. Just right out in the world, you see a mushroom there, you just eat it. So yeah, that's a thing. So that's pretty much what we know so far, or at least what I could gather from the gameplay, the early alpha prelude gameplay for Soulframe. Again, this is going to be developed exactly like Warframe was developed. It's going to be super early PC stuff. So if you can get in, you probably can just go to their Discord, or make sure you have an account on their main Soulframe website, and that will probably get you in. But again, unfortunately, I wasn't able to get in. So any videos I make about this is going to be purely based on gameplay or devlogs that I've seen, until I can get in and check it out. So hopefully I'll be able to get in and check it out. So that's Soulframe. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. And if more information comes out, I'll make another video about it. All right, talk to you guys later.